Are we gonna go?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just give it a 5-second pause.
So, are you gonna read that?
What?
Just that?
No, I'll read that at the end. I just didn't have the time to delete that.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back to Bursting Bookshelves. This is Season 1, Episode 4, The Rise of Edmond Dantes. We're still in the Count of Monte Cristo, obviously. And today we'll be covering 8 chapters from chapter 22 to chapter 30. At least that's what it is in my book. I don't know what it would be in yours. So when we left off last time, Edmond had just escaped from the Chateau d'If and been picked up by some smugglers. So he had swum to this island and weathered a storm, and then these smugglers found him.
Mm-hmm.
And they want him to sign with them because he showed them how good of a sailor he was. They're like, whoa, yeah, you got to sign with us. So that's actually what he does. When we get into chapter 22, Dantes joins the smuggler crew for 3 months. He signs up for 3 months. During this time, he goes to a barber so that he can change his wild man look. Because if you remember, he hadn't shaved for like 14 years.
Yeah.
So he has long beard, long hair, a little frazzled looking maybe. All right, so afterward, he looks in the mirror and he sees a very different man. His physical features have changed, and I think we'll read a section from the book that talks about this, I believe. But his physical features are different. His pallor is different. But more than that, has changed. His very being has changed. He is a cold man, an intelligent man, a hard man, a wily man, and a vengeful man. So this naive person that went into jail, he has come out like kind of opposite to what he was, at least personality-wise. So he's very smart now. He's kind of distasteful in some ways because he's vengeful. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to hand this over to Gabe.
And it says, during his time with the smugglers, they got into a skirmish, so like a fight, in which blood was spilled. And it said, quote, he had looked at the mortally wounded customs man, and whether because his blood was up or because his feelings were chilled, the sight made very little impression on him. Dantes was on the track that he wished to follow, proceeding towards the end he wished to attain. His heart was turned to stone within his breast. Page 217.
Yeah. All right, so we can see here that he is embracing this change. When he went into prison, he was kind of confused and muddled. He didn't really know what was going on. He just knew these 3 things. If you remember, he loved his girl, he loved his father, and he respected his employer. That was about it.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's coming out, and he's much more intelligent, has lots more stuff in his head now, and he also has these ideas of revenge. And so he's embracing this coldness that lets him observe blood and not have any pity or compassion. All right, so he sails around the Mediterranean with this crew, and as he does so, he schemes and waits for a pretense to land on the Isle of Monte Cristo and search for treasure there. So if you remember, there's this treasure on the Count of Monte Cristo that Abbe Faria had told him about and had shown him the directions to. And so his only thought is about getting to this treasure and finding it.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that a little bit ironic because when he went into prison, remember what the 3 most important things were? His girl, his dad, and his employer. When he gets out of prison, though,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't go right back to them. He can go anywhere. I mean, probably he could probably get there if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He is all consumed by this treasure. All right. So that's the end of chapter 22. Oh wait, no, it's not. So he schemes to land on the island of Monte Cristo, but no pretense comes up so that he can figure out a way to land there. But finally, the smugglers, on their own, they make plans to do an exchange of contraband on a neutral site, the island. So the smugglers are going to go to the island, and Dante is going to go with them.
Okay.
All right, so that's the end of chapter 22. Now we're on to chapter 23. All right. So the night before the landing on Monte Cristo, Edmond spends an excited, feverish night. He like he's almost a little bit insane at this point over this treasure. He's acting very, very strangely.
Like Gollum with the ring.
A little bit. Yeah. It's the same deal maybe with treasure and the ring and Lord of the Rings a little
Except
bit.
a little less decayed.
Yeah. All right. So he is preoccupied with visions of treasure. The same is still true when they sail to the island the evening of the next day. So after the successful exchange, the smugglers did their smuggling thing, and everything went on without a hitch. Dantes goes hunting to hunt for wild goats who populate the island, and he's followed by a young protege named Jacopo. And Jacopo he's a member of the crew, and Dantes has kind of taken him under his wing and taught him how to sail better, I guess. A little bit like Faria was to him. So he's kind of looking after Jacopo a little bit. But he doesn't want to share the treasure with him. So he sends Jacopo back. He manages to get him out of the way. So he goes off hunting, and his mind is full of greedy thoughts. He follows a trail in search of the treasure chamber. However, he finds nothing and heads back to the camp. As he approaches, all the seamen see him bounding across the rocks, and all of a sudden they see him slip and fall. When they rush to him, he pretends to have broken his back, pretty much, and he convinces them to leave him on the island with like a gun, some powder, a pickaxe. Why do you want a pickaxe?
They're like, what?
I have a broken back. Yeah, he convinces them to leave him and then come back in a week because they have business to attend to. So they do so reluctantly because they like him. He's a nice guy. They do so reluctantly, promising to come back. Dantes waits until they are well and truly gone before jumping up fit as a fiddle, shouldering the gun and pickaxe they left him, and he sets off in search of his fortune. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, so he is... I don't know exactly how he faked
that part was
how
fun
he
to
faked
read,
the fall, but
that part was fun to read. I was like,
yeah. It's like you don't know whether or not, because the wording in the book, you don't know whether or not he actually did break his back. You're pretty sure he did because he doesn't want to leave. Yeah. You're pretty sure he didn't break his back. You're pretty sure he's pretty fine, but it doesn't tell you exactly.
Literally doesn't.
All right, so that's chapter 23. Okay, we're going to chapter 24 now. Dantes goes off in search of the caves where the treasure is hidden. After a very little amount of time. You know how, like, in most stories, finding treasure takes forever?
Yeah.
Well, this guy took him, like, one afternoon. He went to the right place. I mean, he did wait in prison for a long time, but after he got out and he went to this island, it took him, didn't take him very long to find the treasure.
He didn't have to look for too many clues.
Yeah. He finds what he perceives to be the hidden entrance. It is a large boulder being kept in place by a smaller rock, so kind of wedged in there a little bit. So Edmond takes some of his gunpowder and he blasts apart the littler rock, and the big one tumbles down into the sea. And there, in the ground, is a door, like in the ground.
Yeah.
And this leads down into a cavern, which is lit and aired by holes in the ceiling leading to the surface. So, there were holes there, but you couldn't see them from the top. You could see them underneath. So it kept the cave, wasn't musty and dank and stuff. Anyway. So Dantes searches the room, but finds nothing. He remembers, however, that the treasure is supposed to be in a second cavern, and there's no entrance to a second cavern immediately visible in this first one. So he searches again the first cave and finds a part of the wall that is fake, and he rips it apart and goes into a second cavern. This one doesn't have holes in it that lead to the surface, so he has to use his night vision. He actually has very good vision. They point this out multiple times, so it becomes important, I think. A little important later anyway. He can see very well after having been in prison for so long. His sight is very good. All right, so he searches, and there's only one shadowy corner where the treasure could be hidden, and he is like a basket case at this point. His mind is falling apart. He can't really think straight. His mind is playing tricks on him. He is just kind of losing it over the fact that this treasure might not be here, and he he doesn't think he can live without it. Whereas before he was fine with just getting freedom. Now he's like, I want freedom and a treasure. Isn't that so often how it goes? Unfortunately. All right. Anyway,
Money changes people.
so he goes to the corner and he digs. He finds a big chest. In the chest is a treasure trove of gold and jewels. It's real. No one took it. He found it. Fario's right. He's rich.
Yeah.
He spends an amazing and terrible night in the island, so he's still a little bit cracked about all this. All right. Yep. All right, so that is chapter 24. Then, in chapter 25, Dantes collects some of his treasure and awaits the return of the ship. So basically, like, stuffs it into his pockets as much as he can. All right. When they arrive, they pick him up and take him to a port where he sells some of his diamonds. He then hires Jacopo and a crew and sends them to Marseille to find news. So finally, he's like, okay, about time to figure out what happened to my girl, my dad, and my employer. So they go to Marseille, but he stays behind and purchases a boat and sails to the island of Monte Cristo to retrieve the rest of his treasure.
Yeah, and then he keeps it in that boat for like forever, doesn't he?
I don't know. Does he?
I can't remember. I thought he did. I'm not sure. I don't remember where he kept it. He kept it somewhere.
Well, yeah, we'll see what he does with it in a little bit.
He took it because it was like a bunch of treasure, and then he took it and he kind of combined it and made it like less, to where it was just like one big thing instead of.
Oh, he like sold it several times so that he can. Yeah. Actually, he ends up building a palace on the island of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where the treasure is.
Yes, that's my favorite part.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah. So now we're on.
So yeah, Jacopo comes back after this and says that his father has died, and Mercedes has disappeared. No one knows where she went. Edmond then goes to Marseille to see if he can find some better news. We do not find out whether he does find such news or not, but we do know that he finds his father's old apartment and he convinces the people who are living there to move out because he buys them another place to live in town. So he's like, you can move out of here. I want this. You can have that place over there.
Yeah.
All right. So he takes control of his father's old apartment, and he finds out that Caderousse, if you remember, he was the drunken fellow.
Yeah.
Who was kind of with Danglars and Fernand when they hatched the plan, but who was not really Edmond's enemy.
Mm-hmm.
He finds out that Caderousse is now a tavern keeper elsewhere in France. Okay, he quits the town, leaving lavish gifts and an enchanting mystique behind him. So already there's this shift. We talked about this already. He is turning into a lavish spender. He's turning a little bit Mr. Beastish, if you know what I'm saying. He's turning that direction a little bit, turning into the Count of Monte Cristo and less of Edmond Dantes. So we'll get to how he becomes the Count of Monte Cristo pretty soon. Probably actually next episode, not this episode. We won't talk about the Count of Monte Cristo, the person, for another episode or so.
Okay.
All right. That is chapter 25. And then in chapter 26, the scene changes to the quite unprosperous inn of Gaspard Caderousse and his wife. So
his first name is Gaspard.
Gaspard, I think so.
That's funny.
Yep.
Didn't mention that one in mine.
So one long hot day, a strange priest visits Caderousse, telling him that he is one of the inheritors of a brilliant diamond, the former owner of which, Edmond Dantes, having just recently died in prison, and left the diamond, a gift from a fellow prisoner, in the priest's keeping, to give to Dantes' supposed friends.
Mm-hmm.
So this, obviously, is not the truth. The priest is Edmond Dantes himself, come back from the dead, to see whether or not Faria's deductions were true, whether or not Danglars and Fernand were actually his betrayers or not.
Yeah, he was actually kind of smart when he did that, because he said that, like, he was talking as a priest, and he was like, oh, yeah, so this guy told me to give it to his supposed friends, and then he whispered to, like, the guys that clearly aren't his friends, like Danglars, Fernand.
Yeah. It's like asking Caderousse to condemn
Dantes
them.
Senior, Caderousse, yeah.
All right, so Yeah, so the friends are Danglars, Fernand, Mercedes, Dante Sr., and Catarus himself. And so Dante Sr. has died.
Yeah.
We all know that.
That guy's out.
So that guy's out of the inheritance. So all that stands between Catarus and getting the entire diamond is Danglars, Fernand, and Mercedes. All right. So both Catarus and his wife, they're amazed by the diamond. They are very poor at this point. They don't have much money. They're planning to starve to death, I think. And so, and Catarus, though reluctant at first to reveal the history of Dante's arrest and his friends, the thought that he could convince the abbe to let him have all the diamond instead of only 1/5 of it by revealing the betrayal of its potential receivers changes his mind. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of sticking his nose in a little where it doesn't belong because he's trying to get rich, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. So on to chapter 27. Catarus tells the abbe the unfortunate story of Dante's incarceration, and it's pretty similar. The facts all line up. It's about what we've heard before, what we've read in the book. Except now we have all of Catarus's thin excuses inserted about why he did this and why he did that. Yeah. And he's also condemning
all that. I didn't do it. It was him.
Yeah. He's like, I didn't do this. I didn't help Dante's because I was a coward, but I didn't really betray him. I was a coward, but I didn't really betray him.
He was like, yeah, I was drunk the whole time. I don't even know what happened.
Yeah. And he also makes sure to condemn Danglars and Fernand for their actions. So he tells of Dante's incarceration. He tells of Dante's Sr.'s death, so his dad's death. And it is clear that Edmond, as the priest, is using Cad's story. Cad. Yeah, it's a nickname I gave him. Yes. All right, Cad's story to see whether or not Faria's deductions were accurate or not. And of course they were. They were spot on accurate. That guy was a genius.
Yeah, for real. Never even met the guy, and he's like, yep.
It's amazing. He figured that out from just like what Edmond can tell him.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And it was perfectly accurate. So Catarus tells of Dante Sr.'s death, as I already said. Then he talks about the rise of both Danglars and Fernand. Danglars, if you remember, fled to, I think it was Spain, right? He went to Spain because he was worried that Dantes would get out and come after him.
And then Fernand got drafted, and then
Fernand went into the military. So Danglars, he became a very, very successful banker, rich fellow, rolling in that dough, and so he's on top of Paris society, and Fernand, he has become a very, very successful soldier. He had several successful campaigns, and now he is the Count de Morcerf, and he is living in Paris as well.
The Count de Morcerf?
Count de Morcerf is the Count of Morcerf, I guess. I don't know where Morcerf is or what Morcerf is, but that's what he is.
I'll look that up.
Yeah, you should. And Mercedes is his wife. So she
got him.
Yeah, she ended up marrying Fernand like 18 months, I think, after Dantes went to prison, which is a little bit.
Word, will you stop asking me? Fine, whatever, dude.
Yeah, it's a little bit. How loyal was she exactly? Because she loved him, but like how much did she love him? Because she didn't wait like that long. Like 18 months, I guess. That might. We'll see. Fernand went away to the military, so she was deprived of both of the guys that she loved. What?
It's about a year and a half almost.
I know, but like, I don't think if she was as loyal as she appeared to be, why would she capitulate that quickly? I know it's not that quickly, but
yeah,
I don't think she might have been quite as loyal to Dantes as she seemed.
Yeah, well, I mean, back then also it was like since he gone to the military, he was now like honorized now. So like,
oh, I mean, there's lots of honor with that.
Yeah, and it puts him in a place of more power too. So, it gives her less of an opinion. It gives her less of a choice.
Well, it didn't talk about that. I think most of the problem was that she actually loved Fernand as a brother.
Yeah.
And so he left. And Dantes had just been thrown in prison, so she was alone. She was an orphan, remember? And so she was having a rough time of it. So when Fernand came back and offered to marry her again, she was like, I can't go back to being lonely. So she just did it. So there's legit reason why she did this, but it's not the greatest thing to say about her character. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
I would have just pictured it as like, because it wouldn't have been uncommon back then for like someone like her to not have a choice in the matter. Because so he like goes off to war, he gets honored and everything, and he comes back, and her husband's just been sent to jail as being a Bonapartist.
Well,
and
it wasn't her husband. He wasn't her husband. He wasn't her husband.
Well, technically, fiance.
Yeah.
Went to jail, and so he could use that against her. That's
a good point.
People do. Yeah. So I guess I always figured that she was kind of pressed into it. I always thought of her as loyal too, because like later on, even if when they do meet up, she still very clearly is like, yeah, this guy is still away.
So when Caderousse talks about her, he says that he thinks she's unhappy.
Yeah,
I don't think she's really happy with Fernand, and we will see. We'll see her. We'll see more of her. We're not done with her yet.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think she's happy with Fernand. I think she still actually does love Dantes deep down inside, and also she has a son, which came as a big surprise to the abbe, the priest, and her son's name is Albert. We'll get into him a little bit later. All right. Anyway, that is he swears. Caderousse swears that all he told is true, which it. Of course, it's true. You told it. You want the diamond.
The question is why would you lie?
No, if it actually is true, but he could very easily have lied, and the priest would have known nothing about it, because it is in his best interests to lie if the lie helped him.
Then the abbey is just like, all right, here you go. Here's the diamond.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah.
No.
So that's a little bit indicative of that the priest was not quite what he seemed to be, because he just gave the diamond right up. He didn't corroborate any other evidence with Caderousse's.
Well, because he didn't want to yet.
Yeah, if he was really doing what he said he was doing, he probably wouldn't have given the diamond right up. Yeah, because he's not trying to do that. He's trying to get information.
Obviously, he was going to give the diamond to the guy either way. All he wanted to know was the story.
Yeah, if he got the story, he would have given him the diamond.
Yeah.
All right. So now we move on to chapter 28. And we're going to shift settings yet again. We're back to Versailles. And this time, an Englishman claiming to represent the firm Thomson and French shows up in Versailles, asking a lot of questions about recent hardships of the firm Morel and Son. So Morel is Dantes' former employer.
Yeah.
So he goes to Monsieur de Beauville, the prison inspector, who has a large stake in the company, and is anxious about it, because apparently Morel and Sons has gone down the tubes recently. All their ships, their trading company, have been lost, and their only ship that they have yet is the Pharaon. Remember, that was the ship that Dantes was on, and that ship is a month late from India. And if it doesn't come, Morel is going to have to go bankrupt, and he is not going to be able to pay off all the money he borrowed. So he's not going to be able to honor his signature, and this is a big deal, I suppose. Honoring your signature, big deal. If you say you're going to do something, you better do it.
Especially done.
Yeah. So Monsieur de Beauville, the prison inspector, he's anxious about Morel and Son. The Englishman offers to buy the shares from him if he lets him look in the prison register. So he's going to pay 200 francs or something? No, 200,000 francs. I don't remember. It was a lot of money, at least. Yeah. He was going to pay this and take Monsieur de Beauville's share in the company of Morel and Son if he can look in the prison register. And Monsieur de Beauville is like, oh, totally.
Go for it, bro.
Yeah. he wants to get rid of this as fast as possible. So then the Englishman reads his own entry in the prison register, because guess who he is?
Edmond Dantes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say this, but like it's obvious. So he looks in the prison register, and they think he drowned. He reads that they think he drowned when he tried to escape. They heard him shriek when he was thrown into the ocean, if you remember, with a cannonball tied around his legs.
Yeah.
They thought they were throwing in a corpse. But they heard him shriek, and they think he drowned. But he actually had a knife in there, and he was able to slice his way free.
Yeah.
Dantes discovers details of his case, such as who denounced him, Villefort. Villefort denounced him. Up until this point, outside of Abbe Faria's condemnation, Dantes really didn't know who had condemned him. Villefort, for all he knew, was like his friend who had helped him, but something else had happened. But
that
no,
was one thing that the priest guy didn't even know either, right?
Abbe Faria.
Yeah, he didn't even know whether or not it was Villefort.
But he guessed it was.
Okay.
Because when Dantes told him the name of the man he was delivering it to, Monsieur Noirtier, he remembered that his last name was Noirtier de Villefort. Last name was Villefort, and Dantes knew the name of his
he was well studied
prosecutor. Yeah, so he figured that, and he knew that Noirtier was also a Bonapartist. So he figured out that it would be in Villefort's best interests to put Dantes away. All right. Villefort kept back Morel's desperate recommendations about Dantes' help to the emperor during the Restoration. So when the emperor came back, Monsieur Morel, he saw the opportunity to try to get Dantes out. And so he recommended Dantes to the emperor falsely, because Dantes really didn't help the emperor. He said that Dantes had helped him get back to the throne, and it didn't work because Monsieur Villefort, he kept these requests back. He didn't actually send them. He tricked Monsieur Morel, and then he used them against Dantes in the Restoration when the king came back. So it was, we've talked about this. It was a turbulent political time at this point. And you could be condemned one day and exalted the next. All right, where was I? Yeah, so he used it against Dantes at the return of the monarchy. Mm-hmm. Dantes pockets several items, such as Danglars' denunciation letter, and he pays Monsieur de Beauville. So that is the end of chapter 28. On to chapter 29. So, the many woes of the firm Morel and Son are summed up, how that all his ships have been lost, but the Pharaon, which itself is a month late to port. I think I already talked about this a little bit. Then the representative of Thompson and French, this Englishman, who, by the way, looks and talks and walks exactly like an Englishman, even though he is not an Englishman.
Yeah.
So this guy, he shows up. He is now the chief creditor of Morel and Sons. It's just one son, sorry. It's one son, Morel and Son. He comes to visit the despondent man and his melancholy household. So Morel has a wife and a son and a daughter. The son is in the military. His name is Maximilian. And the daughter's name is Julie. I don't know what his wife's name is. And he only has two clerks left. One is Julie's lover, and the other is an old man who won't leave the family. So they're pretty much down and out right at this point.
Like an old servant, right? He was like a really old guy that would serve.
He was a really old guy, but he wasn't initially a servant. He was kind of a servant now that they fallen in such hard times.
Employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the firm.
Yeah, but so is the other guy.
He's the guy with the eye patch. I think in my book it mentioned something about some guy with an eye patch that worked. Yes, that guy. Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. We'll have to see about that.
I can't remember.
All right, anyway.
Been a while.
So just in the middle of their interview, news comes that the Pharaon has sunk, though her crew was saved. Mm-hmm. One of the wrecked seamen, just returned to Marseille, tells the dismal tale of the ship sinking. After the sailors leave, the Englishman offers to allow Monsieur Morel to extend the due dates for the repayments for 3 months. So instead of, I don't know what it was, they were coming up. He had to pay them really quick. He had no money. He had to pay them really quick. He offers to extend them to 3 months in the future. So they tear up the old notes and Monsieur Morel has 3 months to pay back his greatest debtor. Mm-hmm. All right. The stranger leaves, but not before telling Monsieur Morel's daughter, whose name is Julie, telling her that she will receive a letter from Sinbad the sailor.
Yes.
and she must do whatever the letter tells her to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of suspicious.
It is. It's a little sus.
Yeah.
A full-grown guy telling you, "Hey, you're gonna get a letter from this guy. Do what it says."
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that is chapter 29.
But luckily, he meant well. So I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Well, it wasn't.
as
He wasn't.
creepy.
He wasn't very creepy, actually.
Yeah.
All right. So we're on to chapter 30. Okay. Through the 3 months that the Englishman gave to Monsieur Morel to pay back the money he borrowed, Morel manages to keep off bankruptcy by paying off his other creditors. So they weren't quite as nice as Thompson and French were, and they demanded to be paid right away. So he manages to pay them off desperately. He's living on the edge at this point. Mm-hmm. But when September the 5th rolls around, 3 months after the Englishman came when he was supposed to pay his debts, when September the 5th rolls around, Monsieur Morel has not nearly enough to pay the bill. It's like 200,000. He is like 14 or 15,000 or something. So way, way, way short. So his son, Maximilian Morel, is called home. He comes in upon his father preparing to shoot himself over the fact that he's not going to be able to honor his signature. So apparently this was a huge deal that you honor your signature and you are willing to kill yourself. Yeah, for him specifically, he was a very honorable fellow. Yeah. But he was willing to kill himself. And his son agreed with him. His son was like, go ahead. If you can't honor your signature, I think it's right that you die.
He was like, I mean, if you really want to.
Yeah, he loved his father very much and he wanted the best for him, but he was an honorable guy too, and he saw that this needed to happen.
He also did just now get back from like the military, right?
Yeah, he was in the military.
So he was like, "Oh, good to see you two, Dad."
Yeah, it was a little bit of a weird situation. So, Monsieur Morel, he entreats his son to keep on going with the firm and to pay back all the debts, so that he can gain honor once again. But his time is over. He has to go. He can't fulfill his debt, so he's got to kill himself. Mm-hmm. So Maximilian reluctantly agrees to all this, and he agrees not to stop him. But before he can do the act, however, Julie, his daughter, rushes in to say that she got a letter from Sinbad the sailor, which led her to a small pouch with a diamond and the fulfilled bill inside.
Look at that.
So
Sinbad came through.
Sinbad came through for them.
Turned out that creepy English guy was right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And just as he is getting over this shock, word comes that the Pharaon is sailing into port.
What?
That's
crazy.
This ship sunk. The Pharaon is sailing into port. Disbelievingly, he and his family run down to the water. It is true. The magically restored Pharaon is sailing into port, and with the same crew and the same captain on it.
Oh yeah.
So, a strange man is hiding in the shadows. The
one guy that no one recognizes.
The one guy that no one recognizes. He detaches himself and goes down to a little boat and goes out onto the water. Mm-hmm. And this is pretty much what he says. He says that he's done with doing good things now, with helping people. Mm-hmm. He's ready to go after the bad guys.
He's done with phase 1, on to phase 2.
Yeah. Revenge is on the way. All right. Oh, I love that part.
Yeah.
It's a big shift. We're about to make a giant shift here. There's no more Edmond Dantes.
Yeah.
It's gonna be another guy's name from now on, even though it's the same person technically. Mm-hmm. All right. Now we're on with the chapters. Let's go to the characters. So in chapter 22, I wrote about Dantes. He is a very different, almost opposite man that he was before, and I'm going to read a section from page 214. I didn't write it down. There we go. Okay. Let's see here.
Paragraphs 3.
Okay. Dantes was now 33 years old. He'd been in prison for 14 years, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. As we have said, and his 14 years in prison, I told you, had brought what might be described as a great spiritual change to his features. He had entered the Chateau d'If with a round, full, radiant face of a contented young man whose first steps in life have been easy and who looks to the future as a natural extension of the past. All that had changed utterly.
Yeah.
His oval face had lengthened, and his once merry lips had adopted a fixed, firm line that spoke of stern resolve. His eyebrows arched under a single pensive line, and his eyes themselves were imprinted with deep sadness, behind which from time to time could be seen dark flashes of misanthropy and hatred. His complexion, kept so long from daylight and the sun, had taken on the dull tones that give such aristocratic beauty to men of the North when black hair frames their faces. Moreover, the knowledge that he had acquired gave a look of intelligent self-confidence to his whole face. Though naturally quite tall, his body had taken on the compact vigor of one that has learned to concentrate all his strength within itself. The elegance of lean, nervous limbs had been replaced by the solidity of a well-built, muscular man. His voice, accustomed to prayers, sobs, and curses, had at times a strangely soft resonance, at others a rough edge that was almost husky. In addition, having been constantly in darkness or half light, his eyes had acquired the remarkable ability of seeing in the dark, like those of wolves and hyenas. Edmond smiled when he saw himself. It would have been impossible for his best friend, if he had any friends left, to recognize him. He didn't recognize himself. So yeah,
Dang.
different dude. Very different dude.
Bro looks in the mirror and he's like, who's that?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So you see, it said there the differences that have occurred from when he went in and when he went out. 14 years can do a lot to a person.
Yeah, 14 years in the prison.
Yeah, so he was 19 when he went in, and he's like almost middle-aged now.
He's 35, man. It's
33.
hard. Oh, gosh, dang
it. All right. Anyway, then in chapter 23, now instead of simply wanting freedom, he wants freedom and a vast fortune. And this is pretty much what greed is.
Yeah.
It is also interesting to note that after he escapes, his first thought is not to go back and find out what happened to his father and fiancée, but to secure the treasure. Only after he does this does he turn to the lesser matter of family.
Yeah.
So you can see how his priorities have shifted slightly. He's a little bit, I don't know. I think it's a little early to draw complete judgment on who he is now, but I would go so far as to say that he is somewhat of a less wholesome character than when he went in.
No, definitely.
Yeah. All right, so that's chapter 23. Chapter 24, Dantes, I already said this several times, but he has very good vision, and he wants the treasure very badly. His mind plays tricks on him, making him imagine things. So in chapter 24, this is where he finds the treasure. He is a mess. He's losing it a little bit. We talked about that some. All right, yeah. Chapter 25. He knows exactly what he wants to do with the treasure. He's turning into a little bit of a Mr. Beast, as I said, and no mention of revenge on the three big villains. If you remember, Danglars, Fernand, and Villefort as of chapter 25. So at this point, he is still in news finding, treasure finding, and helping Morel mode.
Yeah.
So then chapter 26, he starts to swing into revenge mode because he's trying to figure out exactly who hurt him and how they hurt him. So Caderousse does not recognize him, which means that his physical changes, passable acting, very passable. It's pretty good. It's not perfect at this chapter. It falls apart several times when Caderousse says something that affects him.
Yeah.
So it's only passable. And his disguise have done the trick. All these things have fooled Caderousse. He is also beginning to use the treasure lavishly. So he is spending it and throwing it around pretty easily. Mm-hmm. All right. Chapter 26 for Caderousse. So I had several notes on Caderousse. Though technically he didn't betray Dantes, he is still a greedy, underhanded man who will stick his nose where it doesn't belong if he thinks it will benefit him. So, not a savory character, though maybe not technically a traitor. I don't know. He didn't help him. I think he's an idiot. Kind of
Got him.
So, and then chapter 27, Caderousse is not overly bright for not thinking earlier in the interview that the abbé might be trying to trick him with a fake diamond. So after the abbé leaves, his wife is like, yo, how do you know that's real, what you're holding in your hand?
Right.
And he's like, oh no. So he rushes off to find a jeweler to see if it's real or not.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get back to that, but I don't remember if it's real or not.
Hilarious if the jeweler is just him again. This guy's like, yeah, man, that's real, bro. That's
that would
amazing.
be funny. I don't think that's what happens, but that would be funny.
That would be amazing.
All right. Those are all the notes I have here.
Yeah.
Then in here, Dantes for chapter 28. Dantes is an amazing actor, though he can still be a little keen at times. He is a little bit too enthusiastic about things that it'd be kind of weird for an Englishman to be enthusiastic about.
Yeah.
He's keen about odd subjects. All right, so that is chapter 28 for Dantes. Then for chapter 29, don't have anything on chapter 29. Chapter 30. All right, I have some stuff on Morel. And, So he's a painfully honorable man. And by painfully, I mean like murderously in some ways. Suicidally honest man.
Yeah.
Honorable. He's willing to kill himself so that he doesn't betray his signature and not fulfill it. So, I mean, that's an extreme fellow. He was about ready to do it too. He had the guns out, pointed at himself. He was ready.
Rushing a lot to the next level, bro.
And so his son Maximilian is equally honorable to his father, and that we'll talk more about Maximilian later on. So we're not done with him. Okay, so from now on, he is Dantes. That is on the quest for revenge, and thinks he has taken God's place. Okay, I'm going to read. What is it? Page 300. I'm going to read a section from page 300 because it's quite moving, I think. And now, said the stranger, and this is where the Pharaon is sailing into port, and the stranger is in the shadows. And now, said the stranger, farewell, goodness, humanity, gratitude. Farewell, all those feelings that nourish and illuminate the heart. I have taken the place of providence to reward the good. Now let the avenging God make way for me to punish the wrongdoer. At this, he gave a sign, and, as if it had been waiting just for this to set sail, the yacht headed out to sea. So he is taking the place of God at this point, and we're going to see how that works out. He's taking the place of God to do justice. That's not a very good idea. Usually,
Absolutely,
we'll have to see what happens with Dantes. But my guess is that I know what happens, but my official guess is that it won't pan out very well.
Yeah, I think there was something that I had on. I think it was 26.
Just dead air.
What?
We just have dead air now.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, what I think I have on when because like he still believed Caderousse, like he didn't blame Caderousse either. Like when he was going out and he was like he had it clearly in his head. He obviously had a few phases. Phase 1 was go get as much information as you can, and then 2 was like
help Morel.
Yeah, repay the people who did help you, and then phase 3 was revenge and such. And so I think it was cool that he put Caderousse as someone that he didn't distrust.
Oh, I don't think he trusted him. There's no way he trusted him.
Well,
I guess he might have been rewarding him slightly for not betraying him, I suppose.
Yeah.
So you did give him the diamond, but I don't think Caderousse is a person that Dantes trusts.
He had a little bit of pity on him too, because he saw what happened to him. Because
he's also very poor. So
yeah, out of the 3 people, Caderousse had the worst.
Yeah. So the other 2 guys, they were very rich, even though they were worse than Caderousse. They had gotten to the top of society. And so Caderousse was bitter about that because he's like, these guys are bad. They didn't do anything good. I was innocent, but like I'm suffering for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, another question. Do you think Dantes is going to go after Mercedes?
Well, I got 2 answers for that. One is a spoiler and the other one isn't, so I'm going to go with the other one. But, I mean, from an outside, like, if I hadn't read the book, because this one's just slightly different, it gives you a little bit of a different painted picture than the one that I read. So in the one that I read, it was more like, it took a little bit longer to come to this conclusion, you know? Like, it was like chapter 30 or something when it first mentioned him as the priest and such. It went into a lot of random detail about his time with the priest, like a lot of random detail. There was like a whole chapter or two just about that.
Yeah.
And so, and then there was a bunch of describing about how he was talking to Catarus, and it went into the difference of how, like you said, he had the disguise on really well, but the acting was a little bit of a problem. It was like, it described that in the book that I read a lot, because it said that, especially when it mentioned that she was married, the priest like cried, and he like broke completely, and Catarus was like, okay.
What do you know about this girl?
What? I'm confused. Still eyeing that diamond that this guy has in his hand. He's like, okay, I mean, I feel bad for you to some extent, but can you get it over with so I can have that diamond?
Yeah.
Please?
So, I think...
So, I mean, yes, I do believe that, as just hearing the story, yeah, he's probably going to go after her. I mean, who wouldn't? Like...
Yeah, he's going to have to decide whether or not she betrayed him or not.
Oh, yeah. I still don't think that she did. I don't know. It just...
Yeah, I can't really blame her for what happened. It's
like,
not really.
Danglars and Fernand and Catarus, they started out, and you were like, "Ooh, I don't like that character as much."
Yeah, you like Mercedes from the beginning. She's a nice character,
and it's like, it's kind of sad. But I was listening to podcasts with a bunch of like legends and such, and in that time specifically, it would have like, for a while there, pretty meant like beautiful meant good. So like if someone so if someone
looked good, they were good.
Yeah, but if they looked good and were bad, everybody was like, what? No.
Yeah.
That's why witches
times were
painted
simpler.
The screen with like a bunch of pimples all over.
Yeah.
Because they're like supposed to be gross and stuff.
Okay,
so
that's a good point.
Funny.
That's a very good point. So maybe because she was beautiful, she wouldn't be a good character.
She wouldn't be blamed by anybody because he was like, well, she's beautiful.
I think you're right. I think that's where we're gonna head. I think you're right about that.
That one, I don't know, because there's either way that he could take that. Because it's a little bit of an untraditional story. Like, at the beginning, he could have just made it to where she didn't have an option with the whole Fernand thing. Or he could have gone traditionally to where she didn't really have an opinion.
Well, this wasn't high society.
Yeah, I guess that's too. But that's what I think about when he comes back from the military. He would have been higher in society. So she would have less of an opinion too.
Yeah.
And so she probably took that into consideration too. She's like, okay, so I can take this option here. This guy who is honored and such, and
he's rich, powerful.
Yeah, he's powerful. He's got a lot of pull in society, kind of. Or I can wait for however long for this
poor guy.
This who's not as much.
Yeah.
Know? And she was like, okay, I gotta weigh my options. I'm gonna go with this one. Okay. Yeah. So I think it was a wise choice. But I think to Edmond, it could be considered as betrayal. Yeah, that's why I'm curious as to how he takes it in this one.
Yeah.
It doesn't really go into detail in mine, so I'm kind of curious as to that.
Okay. Yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be a fun ride.
I like how he goes to Morel. I really like that.
Oh yeah, I like how he helps him. I think that shows that he has some heart left. It says that his heart was turned into stone in his breast. I think it's not quite stone yet. I think
it still shows that there's a little bit of the old Edmond in there.
And we're going to find that it never dies completely.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's all for today, unless you have something else.
No. Okay. No, that was all mine. Yeah.
All right. So make sure to follow the show.
Yeah.
Leave some comments down below. Share it with your friends. Comment. Do all the things to help support us.
Accidentally leave it streaming throughout the night.
That would be helpful. All right. Anyway.
Thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks for listening. Bye.